Well, after an action-packed week 8, week 9, and from here on out, it's going to get more interesting as the season goes along. Let's talk football. All right, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the All Around Sports Podcast, where sports are everything on this channel. I'm your host, Antonio. Today, we are going over my week 9 NFL predictions and power rankings. Last week, I was 10-5. This week, I did a similar fashion of what I did last week. I got 10 right again, and this time I only got 6 wrong. But that makes my total record of 78-45, which has been my best start to this season so far. And this is only my second year calling plays, and then also along with predictions. So I'm getting a little better at that category. But for now, I'm doing something a little different. I would normally do this video in a separate one than this one, but I'm going to put in my top 5 best performances of the week and my top 5 worst performances of the week. So I'm going to do that. But before we get started, if you guys do enjoy this video, please be sure to do me a favor and smash that like button down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. But for now, let's get this thing started. So starting us off at number 5 of the best. And I'm going to start with the best first, and then I'm going to do the worst. So best, Chiefs find a way again, beating the Raiders once again. I have it up on the screen so you guys can see. The Chiefs have just found a way. Travis Kelce finally catching his first touchdown, long overdue. But number 4 is the Philadelphia Eagles, remaining in the division race. Their defense slowly starting to get better. And meanwhile, their offense is still doing what it was with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. But then number 3, the Arizona Cardinals upsetting the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins had Tua coming back, so hopefully some Dolphin fans were hoping that he could bring something back to them. But the Cardinals, they just annihilated the Dolphins, and they are really something to be feared. But the number 2, the 49ers destroyed the Dallas Cowboys. Absolutely annihilated them. And they were just amazing throughout that game. I called that one. But then, number 1 of the best performances, Jaden Daniels pulls an Aaron Rodgers against the Jets. Against the Bears, my bad. But man, that Hail Mary was amazing. So Jaden Daniels, by far offensive rookie of the year, front runner. But now to move on to the worst performances of the week. As number 5, Baker couldn't bake as Evans and Godwin were out. I'm not going to give him too much heck because there has to be a man to show up like Jaden McMillan and maybe Bucky Irvin. But then number 4 is the Ravens getting upset by the Browns. That was a big time upset. And the Ravens, they have a lot of ground to make up after losing that week. But then and then number 3, the first time my Seahawks have been on the worst in their sideline frustrations. Jaron Reed, and also along with Derek Hall, seem to have gotten into a scuffle on the sideline. This team is just unknown right now. We don't know if this team's going to be really good, but we don't know if we're going to see the good team or if we're going to see the 50-50 team. So, number 2 is the Dallas Cowboys looking like a garbage team, as they always have. They are just getting annihilated. They cannot stop the run. They can't establish their own run. But number 1, the Jets getting embarrassed by the Patriots. The Jets were hyped to be a Super Bowl contender, but now are sitting at 2-6 in last place of the AFC East. And the Jets, their Aaron Rodgers experiment clearly didn't work. So now let's move down to the power rankings, and then we will move up to the predictions. All right, now with the best 5 and worst performances of the week, now we're moving to the power rankings. So I'm going to pull up the rankings on my screen from 1 to 10, and then I'm going to go over honorable mentions. So number 1 and number 2 are still the same as last week. Lions at number 1 and Chiefs at number 2. The Lions just destroyed the Tennessee Titans, and I took that into account. because the Chiefs, they had a relatively close game against the Raiders. I'm using that as my determining factor. It depends on how each team does from here on out between the Lions and the Chiefs. But from 3 on down, it has changed. In at number 3, jumping up 2 spots from a win last week against the Jags, the Green Bay Packers. Packers just looking absolutely incredible this week. Just their defense showing up. They did make it a close game against the Jaguars, but ultimately, in the end, they were able to get the game-winning field goal. At number 4, jumping back up into the top 5, is the Houston Texans. Texans are just looking good. Their offensive line still has some issues, but I see that only getting better throughout the year. But hopefully, the Texans O line can fix their problems. But number 5 is the Buffalo Bills, making their way into the top 5 after sadly defeating my Seattle Seahawks. I knew that was going to be a test for us because the Bills are a really good team. And then number 6 in and is the Washington Commanders. After a miracle Hail Mary in DC ended up happening, and Jaden Daniels' legendary rookie year continues. And then number 7 is the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles get a big time win last week against the Cincinnati Bengals. And then number 8 is the Ravens. After a big loss to the Cleveland Browns, I'm not going to drop them out too much. And then number 9 is the Minnesota Vikings. Although they did lose again, I was concerned at first. I had them at number 4 or at number 4 last week, but they dropped down 5 spots as they lost to the Rams. But number 10 is the Atlanta Falcons, making their way back into the top 10. But now to the honorable mentions. Some teams were in it last week, but I have 6. The Arizona Cardinals, Denver Broncos, San Francisco 49ers, Los Angeles Rams, Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Los Angeles Chargers. The Cardinals lead the NFC West right now. I took into account the win that they had against Miami. If they get a win this week against Chicago, they could likely jump into the top 10, depending on what happens with the rest of the top 10 teams. Broncos, they have a big game against the Ravens this week, which I'll touch on. And then the 49ers are on their bye, so I'm not going to put them in there yet. And then the Rams got a huge win against the Vikes, but I'm not sure putting them in the top 10 yet. Steelers, they were in the top 10 last week, but just because of the fashion of which they won, I dropped them out of the top 10 this week. And then the Chargers, they are looking like a really good team. I'm very anxious to see what they can do against Kansas City when they face them again. But that is out of the way. Now it's into the predictions of the week. Starting us off for the Thursday night matchup, you've got the Houston Texans going on the road to New York to take on the New York fraudulent Jets. The Jets, that Devontae Adams trade just didn't work.
Okay, fine, I'm cool, I'm fine.
Even though trying to bring in Aaron Rodgers' greatest weapon in Green Bay, it still didn't work. And they are playing against the Houston Texans this week, which their defense has been looking really good. It's been mainly their offensive line that has been the main struggle. But the Jets, I just don't think if they lose this game, which I am predicting that they will, they are going to miss the playoffs. So I'm going with the Houston Texans on this one because the Texans are overall the better team in this matchup. But I'm going with the Texans to get the win over the fraudulent Jets. And next matchup is the Dallas Cowboys going on the road to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. The Cowboys had a little hope going into the last little drive, but ultimately couldn't get the job done.
Oh, there's a big surprise. That's an incredible. I think I'm going to have a heart attack and die from that surprise.
And they're going to be taking on the Atlanta Falcons on the road before going home against the Philadelphia Eagles in a few weeks. But, man, the Cowboys, they are just looking really bad. They cannot stop the cold, which is the run. They still are just not looking good. They've made a 12-win season the last 3 years, but only one other team in the NFL has finished with a worse record, that had 3 straight consecutive 3-win seasons. It was the 1999 San Francisco 49ers after the Steve Young departure, just to bring that historical stat up. But I'm going to go with the Falcons on this one because the Cowboys, they are just looking bad. They are just not good. And they really just need to start blowing it up and rebuilding because this clearly ain't working. So I'm going with the Falcons to get the win over the Dallas Cowboys. And you've got a potential game of the week. You've got the Denver Broncos going on the road to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. The Broncos destroying the Carolina Panthers, as every team appears to do against Carolina. Sorry, Panther fans. But the Ravens, they got massively upset by the Browns last week. With Jameis Winston now back in the starting helm, now the Browns offense is starting to cook. And that's just been the story around the Browns for years. But this game is gonna be interesting. The Broncos defense has been looking good, but then again, they have played easy opponents. This is by far going to be a big statement game for the Broncos. If they win this game, they could likely jump into my top 10 next week. But I am going to go with the Ravens because I just think overall right now they are the better team in this matchup. Although they did lose to the Browns, I am going to go with them to get a bounce back win. So, Perna, sorry, but the Donkeys go out this week. And then, following that, you've got an AFC East rivalry game. You've got the Miami Dolphins going on the road to Buffalo to take on the Bills. Now, the Dolphins, Tua is back, but it didn't appear to matter as the Dolphins got beat again, this time by the Arizona Cardinals. But they're going to be taking on the Bills, which the Bills have owned Tua, which pretty much Josh Allen and the Bills are Tua's daddy.
Oh, what was I worried about? Oh, God!
Right now. So the Bills, they are on at home this week. I do believe that Bills Mafia is going to be a huge factor in this week. So I'm going with the Bills to get the win. They are just going. They've shown that even though the Dolphins and the Jets were heavy favorites to win the division at the beginning of the year, y'all gotta start respecting those Bills because they are coming. So I'm going with the Bills to get the win over the Dolphins, sweeping them once again. Then moving from the AFC East to the AFC South for a division rivalry in the Battle of the Tank Bowl, you've got the Saints taking on the Panthers. The Saints still wondering from that where that team from week 1 and 2 went.
Don't freak out. Don't freak out. Easy fix. Puzzle code in my head. Now it's on the walls. Everything is good.
Because that team has just been non-existent. And even though Derek Carr is still out, there is some good news that some pieces could possibly return this week. But the last time the Saints faced the Panthers, they destroyed them 47-10 in that week 1 game. One of the 2 wins that they have on their resume. But in this one, I'm going with the Saints again. I just think that overall the Carolina Panthers are not a good team. And I just think the Bryce Young situation has been looking bad. So I'm going with the Saints to get the win over the Carolina Panthers. And then you've got a playoff rematch from a couple of years ago. You've got the Las Vegas Raiders going on the road to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. Last time these two teams faced off in the playoffs, the Bengals were able to put an end to a 34-year playoff curse. As they are now facing them for the first time since that game. But the Raiders getting destroyed last week by the Kansas City Chiefs, as per usual. But the Raiders, their offense has not been existent. It's been primarily their defense that has been keeping them in games. But they're going to be taking on the Bengals that are going to be looking for a desperate win this week as they still try to remain in the playoff picture. But I'm going with the Cincinnati Bengals because I think they win this game from here until the playoffs because if they're going to make the playoffs, they pretty much have to. So, and then have to get some help from some other teams. But for right now, I'm going with the Bengals to get the win over the Raiders. And then you got the Los Angeles Chargers going to take on the Cleveland Browns. The Chargers getting a big time win against the New Orleans Saints and just absolutely annihilating them in every single way. After starting off a bit slow, then they got into a groove. But they're going to be taking on the Browns that upset the Ravens last week.
Cherry? Another cherry?
Which Jameis Winston, I am still having concerns about that because this is a much better defense. The Ravens defense has been suspect, but I'm going with the Chargers on this one. I just think right now, until the Browns can win some more games, I think right now they are the better team. But I'm going with the Chargers to get the win over the Browns. And then you've got an NFC East rivalry matchup. You've got the Commanders going on the road to New York to take on the Giants.
All hail the New York Giants!
This only the second meeting between both Malik Neighbors and Jaden Daniels for the second time since leaving LSU. So Malik Neighbors probably missing his buddy right now. But the Commanders got a big Hail Mary in their favor last week, and they got extremely lucky. And if they had missed that, they would have lost the game. They should have lost it, but in the end, Jaden Daniels, being the legendary rookie he is, just doing what he does best. But the Giants, they are just a swamp right now. I'm going with the Commanders to get the win because I think the Commanders are right now better, and they are right now exceeding our expectations from what we had seen from the Texans a year prior. So I'm going with the Commanders to get the win over the New York Football Giants. And then you've got the New England Patriots taking on the Titans in a tank bowl. And man, this is going to be a very interesting week. So the Patriots upsetting the Jets last week, and then the Titans just getting destroyed by the Detroit Lions. But I'm just gonna make this very quick and simple. I'm going with the Patriots on this one because the Titans, they are just not a good team. They just can't seem to improvise on the talent they have. And they pretty much saying if we can't be happy, nobody can, as they traded DeAndre Hopkins to the Titans. Still a big move, but I'm going with the Patriots to get the win over the Tennessee Titans. And then you've got the Bears taking on the Cardinals. The Bears giving up a Hail Mary and a very much seem to have won the game, but one of their secondary players apparently wasn't paying attention. I don't remember the guy's name. I think it was Terrell Stevenson chatting with some of the fans as that play was going on, but then had the batted pass to Noah Brown for the game-winning touchdown. But that was just a bad move by that guy, Terrell Stevenson. They're going to be taking on the Cardinals that are surprisingly on top of the NFC West right now. But man, I did not see the Cardinals coming. I cannot ignore what the Cardinals are doing right now. I am going to go with the Cardinals again because the Bears, they are just not looking too smooth since that loss. But I'm going with the Cards to get the win over the Bears. And then you originally had this as a Sunday night game, but it got flexed for another game I'll touch on later. You got the Jacksonville Jaguars to take on the Eagles. And probably a good reason why they swapped out Sunday nights because this would have been an ugly game for a Jaguar fan. But the Jags, even though trying to put up an effort to win the game against the Green Bay Packers, they ultimately fell a game-winning field goal short of that. But the Jags, they are trying their best to win games, but ultimately cannot get it done. They're going to be taking on the Eagles that are just destroying their opponents with a purpose. And just because the Eagles are getting better every single game that they play, I'm going with the Eagles because the Eagles right now are the better team of this game. So I'm going with the Eagles to get the win over the Jags. And sorry, Jag fans, this kitty goes out. And then you've got an NFC West rivalry game. You've got the Los Angeles Rams going on the road to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. Man, the Rams getting a win last week, but it didn't end without a little controversy as Byron Young appeared to have grabbed Sam Darnold's face mask as the safety was going on, but still need to get that rule changed to at least make it be reviewable because the face mask penalty is just costing teams games. But also last year and then some this year. But they're going to be taking on my Seahawks, which unfortunately got obliterated and run over by the Buffalo Bills and got stampeded all over. But the Seahawks, they did not look good this game. DK Metcalf should hopefully be back this week. So we'll see, of course, what the Seahawks can do because either one of two teams is going to show up. Either the team that comes in there and tries to beat the Rams and tries to knock through their teeth, or they're the team that just doesn't appear to try to win and beat themselves. But Jaron Reed, and also along with Derek Hall getting into a scuffle on the sideline. But I mean, it's not looking good. But I'm hanging in with my Seahawks one more time. I'm going with the Seahawks this time. I'm hanging on with them. I believe DK Metcalf being out last week was a big determining factor. But I'm going with the Seahawks because I think the Rams, even though they have some pieces back, I do think that the Seahawks are going to get better. They're going to be back in this game with a little desperation from what happened this past week. So I'm going with the Seahawks to get the win over the Rams. And if you want to say I'm delusional, part of you might say I'm right. And then from the NFC West to the NFC North, as a big rivalry game that could likely determine the winner of this division is taking place. You've got the Detroit Lions going on the road to Lambeau Field to take on the Green Bay Packers. Man, this is going to be a good game. The Lions just absolutely obliterating the Tennessee Titans last week. Meanwhile, the Packers just got a huge win against the Jaguars, but it was very close. Another game winner by Brandon McManus. But this defense of Green Bay is going to be a key factor in this game because David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs are going to be key factors in this football game. But because the Lions are the best team of the NFC right now, I am going with the Lions because I think the Lions are the better team. I'm going with them over the Packers because I just think that they've beaten them in Green Bay and then lost to them in Detroit. So I'm going to think that's going to be the same incidents here. So I'm going with the Lions to get the win over the Packers. And sorry, Tom, the Packers go out this week. Then you have a Sunday night football swap, as it was supposed to be the Jaguars and the Eagles, but now it is the Colts versus the Vikings. The Colts, for some weird reason, Anthony Richardson decided to sit out and play because he was appeared to be too tired.
Huh?
I mean, that is just crazy. But they're going to be taking on the Vikings, which last time these two sides faced off, the Vikings were down on the Colts 33-0 and ended up coming back for the biggest comeback in NFL history and still is to this day. So the Vikings, I do believe they are going to be back with a purpose this week. Their first game at home since the Lions game. I'm going with the Vikes here because I believe the Vikings are a better team in this matchup, and the Colts, they either need to stick with Anthony Richardson and hope he matures or go with Joe Flacco. But I'm going with the Vikes to get the win over the Indianapolis Colts. And then Monday night, you've got a Super Bowl 55 rematch as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers go on the road to visit Kansas City in Arrowhead to take on the back-to-back Super Bowl champion, the Kansas City Chiefs. Maybe soon to pull the three-peat.
I fear no man, but that thing.
But the Bucs getting obliterated last week by the Atlanta Falcons, and now and those pieces of Chris Godwin and Mike Evans being out has been a substantial piece for this Buccaneers team as of the last week. They are going to be taking on the Chiefs that won a close matchup against the Raiders, but the Chiefs, they are just looking like they're going to pull this repeat. I do believe the Chiefs are going to fight to get into the playoffs again, as they always do. And they are, I don't think they're, I'm not sure if they're going to get past the playoffs or not, because three-peat is extremely rare. The last team to do it was the Lakers. So I'm going with the Chiefs until they lose. I'm going with the Kansas City Chiefs until they lose, because the Chiefs, they just look good. And I'm going with the Chiefs to get the win over Tampa Bay. And Baker ain't going to bake this week. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Who do you guys think is going to win every single game of the week? Also, what are you guys' thoughts on my list of the top 10 teams? And what are your thoughts on my worst and best performances of the week? Was there a team in there that I had caught, or was there a team I had missed? But let me know in the comments what you think. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please make sure to do me a favor and smash that like button down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. But until next time, I'll see you all in the next one. Ciao for now.